More than a few preppers have stocks of food, water, and gear bulging out of their garages, basements, and bug out locations. Depending on the situation, some serious preppers have multiple bug out bags, and they're packed, heavy, and ready to go. I love reviewing solar generators and solar panels, and I have more than I could use right now. I also have water storage and water filtration systems, but the most important thing I have is the knowledge of how to build a filter in the wild from materials I can forage, gather, and salvage. I also know how to use chemicals others wouldn't see the practical use of to kill off microorganisms and parasites in the water I collect in the wild. While an earthquake could wipe out my stored water in seconds, I still can collect and render drinkable water from the wild. One is gear, the other is skills. In the argument of which is better, gear or skills, they always win out. Still, I wouldn't want to try and light a fire after disaster if all I had was wet wood. Some gear in that situation would certainly be helpful. This video will examine 4 criteria you should apply to all of your gear and 5 of the top skills you should make some effort to know a bit about. After this video, you may want to take it further by putting those skills into occasional practice or pressing your gear into use. Both gear and skills have their place. While I say gear, I mean any equipment or tool you have that can be purposed toward your survival. Gear will often get you through the immediate crisis, but as we all will see here, it's a skill that will get you through the long time haul of surviving. Also at the end, I'll share some personal plans I have for next year to develop skills. So let's talk about it. Download the Start Preparing Survival Guide to help you prepare for any disaster. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/get started for a free guide to help you get started on your journey of preparedness. Let's start off by discussing the 4 criteria you should apply to all of your gear and tools. Portability. Skills and knowledge, they travel with you. Memories and thinking have no weight. Some of my equipment is heavy. Even carrying a backpack full of food, water, and gear will wear you down and slow your progress. I don't know what you can regularly lift, but I put my heavy gas generator on wheels. Sure, I could lift it in and out of my car and take it with me if I had to, but it's not something I'd want to do if I'm also worried about my personal safety at the same time. It's not something I will want to do if I don't want to risk a minor muscle strain that could hamper my ability to get to safety. My solar generators, on the other hand, are far lighter and more practical in a grid-down situation, and they will provide me limitless energy in small amounts. With any gear, consider its portability. Can you take it with you, or is it tied to your home, bug-out location, or encampment? Replication. If you know how to do it once, you can do it again. Someone might supply the raw materials for you, or go and get the raw materials for you in exchange for your work. In this way, skills are a commodity. If money were to become completely worthless, skills would hold their value. If you have a sewing needle and some thread, but you lose a needle, you will wish you knew the bushcraft skill of fashioning a bone needle. If your fire rod falls in the fire or you lose it out of your pocket, you'll wish that you knew what flint looks like in its rock state. If you lose your only fish hook, and if you've ever fished, you know how often that happens. You will wish you had learned how to fashion a hook out of a can, pull tab, wood, or bone. The fact is that tools and gear have a single lifetime of utility. Knowing how to make tools, having that skill allows you to replicate and fashion tools out of nature. You'll never be without the components of fire. You'll never be without a fish hook, a spear tip, a length of rope, a shelter, and so forth. So consider with any gear how long its usable life is. If it's super critical to you, remember the old adage, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. If it's that good, you might want to keep 2 in your inventory. You might want to also learn the skill to make it from the wild, whatever tool it is that's so critical to your survival. Security. Skills cannot be stolen, but gear can be. Gear will make you a target for some during desperate times. After a disaster, start up that gas generator of yours or fire up your barbecue and see how many people start peering over your fence or heading your way, following their ears and nose. Desperate people will take desperate measures and won't give a second thought about taking from you when they are in survival mode. On this fact alone, many approach security solely from the perspective of having more weapons and bigger weapons than those around them. Many of those armed survivors are also the ones who don't holistically look at their gear. In the aftermath of a large-scale disaster, yes, they are pretty secure, but they might also become a marauder to stay alive and get things they overlooked in their prepping inventory. Beyond getting your gear stolen and making yourself a target for those who would steal it, you do need to approach security as keeping yourself safe. This is where skills are better than gear. Knowing self-defense, knowing how to wield a knife, Even knowing how to shoot a gun are essential skills. A weapon in the hands of someone who doesn't know how to use it is dangerous to the user and everyone around the user, including allies. If someone grabs you or is coming at you with a weapon, you may not survive the attack, but your chances of survival go way up with just a little training and learning of some basic skills and techniques. So when you look at security or gear, examine how secure you are with your gear and what gear you have to keep you safe. Also, can you properly use it? Usability. My gas generator is only good as long as I have gas. My knives are only good if they're sharp. Ropes are great, but knowing how to make a rope in the wild, that's a bushcraft skill that you can genuinely use. Learning how to tie knots takes a rope from just a long piece of string to a useful tool. Usability is the most significant factor when it comes to gear. Will your gear function? Do you know how to use it? Will it save you more calories than it expends? How long of a life expectancy does the gear have? Matches or flint and steel are only as good as they last. You need to stretch the tool that is a match or a ferro rod by knowing how to create a good kindle and tinder. If your gear has just one application, is it that good? Is it worth the wait? When it comes to usability, it's part skills anyway. Do you know how it works? Sure, you have a great knife, high quality knife, but have you ever used it in the wild? I've taught skills to Cub Scouts, and believe me when I say this, there's a lot to learn to keep from cutting yourself or others. One deep cut can drop your chances of survival to 0. With any gear or tool, you have to take it out and press it into service. Make sure it isn't going to break or malfunction on you. Learn how to use it and under what conditions you can get the best performance from it. Consider usability when you consider your gear and not just the online reviews. So consider the portability, replication, security, and usability of your gear now and before you commit to purchase anymore. When you build in redundancy to your gear, make that redundancy a skill in your prepping inventory. Both gear and skills will get you through, so as long as you have enough knowledge to use your gear and leverage your environment. That said, here are the top 5 skills that I think are the most important to you in a prolonged grid down situation. You may disagree, and I would invite you to let us know the top skill you think is most important in the comments below. But if you learn a little from each of these 5 skills, your odds of long-term survival are exponentially higher. Top 5 skills to learn. Foraging. Even in an urban metropolis, you walk by hundreds if not thousands of edible plants. Many plants have edible roots. Do you admire your neighbor's canna lilies? Did you know the rhizomes can be eaten raw, boiled, or baked and have a similar taste to a water chestnut? That would be great to know if there were no other food sources available to you. It would also be great to know your neighbor's hydrangea flowers have a small amount of cyanide in them and will kill you if you eat them. There are many plants you can eat, and more than a few that will make you sick or kill you. Get in the habit and mindset of learning the plants around you, on your walks, in your neighborhoods, in your region. Learn how to grow and how to replant. It's now understood that the indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest took plants they foraged from and planted them around their settlements. Foraging and gardening are logically related to each other. Know what you can eat and even do a little foraging where you can to try out a few recipes. Plant a piece on your yard or your balcony with some sunchokes. Just avoid areas that may be sprayed with pesticides or weed killers, and maybe leave your neighbor's flowers alone for now. Fermentation. Whether it's beer, pickling, or kombucha, understanding the basics of fermentation will allow you to make food edible and preserve it over the long haul. A fermented drink is its own microcosm and does it like foreign bacteria. A beer that has been properly bottled will keep for a year or more because of its pH and alcohol content. That's commercial beer. I have drunk home brews far older than that. A strong mead or wine will keep for decades if kept cool and in a dark place. The oldest wine in existence today is from 325 AD. The Spire wine bottle was found in 1867 in the tomb of a Roman soldier. While that one probably isn't drinkable, some over 200 years old wine is still quite drinkable. Fermentation is taken to the next level through distillation, and alcohol can provide you with a combustion, sterilization, and just a good stiff drink now and again. Even if alcohol isn't your thing, learning to ferment foods can be a lifesaver. The Dust Bowl hit at the same time as the Great Depression, which left many throughout Middle America desperately starving for food as crops failed. Seemingly biblical plagues of jackrabbits and grasshoppers descended on the plains and destroyed whatever meager crops could grow. This led to rabbit drives, where thousands of jackrabbits were killed by the thousands. Food scarcity was real, but tumbleweeds were in abundance. Almost nothing would grow in the Dust Bowl, but weeds like lamb's quarters and tumbleweeds continued to thrive. Families resorted to brining the weeds and storing them to eat during the winter. If you didn't know it, brining is not necessarily the same as fermentation. Fermentation and brine would require the brine to be in an environment conducive to active lactobacillus bacteria growth. But if you didn't know, that's a good reason you should learn the skill of fermentation. Understanding how yeast and bacteria work on our foods and harnessing their power can mean the difference between starvation and bounty. Certainly beats having to eat an entire crop of cucumbers a day before they spoil. Bushcraft. One of the first lessons to learn when it comes to building a bug-out bag is that the less skills you have, the more gear you will need to compensate. As you develop skills, the gear you once deemed as necessary begins to decrease. Learning how to build a shelter in the wild, hunt, fish, forage, start a fire, process a kill, all are skills you should aspire to learn by hands-on experience. The average person in the wilderness would be dead from dehydration, starvation, or exposure in mere days. Bushcraft is merely the skills needed to live in the wild. Think primitive and rugged camping, knowing how to tie a knot, build a lean-to, or turn a tarp into a tarp tent all fit into that category. Being able to start a fire or a smokehouse fits this category as well. When it comes to bushcraft, there's theory and then practice. Even if it works and you're reading about it, it is still a theory until you put it into practice, at least once. Bushcraft skills will get you home after a disaster. They will help you get out of a disaster zone. They will keep you alive. Hopefully, you don't ever have to get to the point where you're naked, afraid, and lost in the wild. But if you do, you will be glad you spent the time learning some bushcraft skills. And please, don't mistake watching a bushcraft video on YouTube as actually knowing how to do it. Learn from it, sure, and actually get out and do it. Fiber arts. Fiber arts is a broad term that includes rope making, spinning of thread, sewing, needlepoint, knitting, weaving, felting, rug making, crocheting, basket making, knot tying, and all those kinds of entanglements. Before you could catch fish effectively, you needed someone to make a net or tie a line. Before you could keep warm, you needed someone who could stitch together animal pelts or weave a tunic out of smashed hemp or papyrus fibers. The ancient Egyptians used papyrus to make paper, baskets, sandals, mats, rope, blankets, tables, chairs, mattresses, medicine, perfume, food, and clothes. Most indigenous people in North America made their clothing from agave plant fiber. Ancient cultures from subtropical regions worldwide, including the Americas, Africa, Egypt, and India, gave the world cotton. Whether stitching a wound or making paper, knowing how to work with fibers provides you with unlimited possibilities. Medical arts. Knowing how to administer first aid is crucial. Learning how to stitch a laceration takes that a step further. Knowing what plants can form an antibacterial, anti-inflammatory poultice to keep the wound from getting infected takes it a step further. Medical care after a disaster or in the aftermath of an shtf situation is going to be reliably available. You will also probably need to do much more than band-aid a child's skinned knee. Any study done in this field, from formal CPR training to the medicinal uses of plants, is time well spent. You don't have to be a doctor, but understanding how to lower a fever or fight infection could be a lifesaver to you. That doctor could be more apt to exclaim, "If only I had the proper medicines and tools." I'm not saying that you should forego medical care now to try out some herbal folksy remedies. Many of us live at a time where medicine is highly advanced, albeit pricey, but you would be well served to know little things like the fact that white willow bark contains salicylic acid. Did you know that we get aspirin from that? Do you know what a white willow tree looks like? Combine your learning with a bit of foraging now and again, and you will have the skills you need when you need them. A combination of good gear that you know how to use and good skills that will never be subject to getting lost or stolen will get you through even the worst disasters. Skills are the most essential piece of equipment in your prepping supplies. Your gear will undoubtedly make things easier for you in the short term, but your skills will serve you long after your tools have failed. Commit to reviewing your gear. Put it into service to know how it works. Develop skills using it, and commit to learning a new skill. Maybe learn a little of each of the 5 that we've outlined here. Now, out of the 5 mentioned, do any of them interest you personally? For me, I'm going to proactively work on developing medical skills next year. My background in college, as I've mentioned before, was microbiology. I did my undergrad in this with plans to go to medical school. I even went as far as taking the MCAT and applying to medical school, but ultimately went a different direction when it came to my career. I'm very interested in taking EMT training next year through a local junior college in order to get the knowledge and learn from practical experience on the job. It's always nice to get paid to learn, right? What do you think? Is there a piece of gear you absolutely couldn't survive without? Is there a skill I didn't cover here you deem essential? Let me know in the comments below. I read many of the comments and respond to them when I can. That's typically within the first hour of releasing a video. I can notify you when other videos become available if you take that step to subscribe to this channel, and please consider giving this video a thumbs up. As always, stay safe out there.